I call the Honourable Alfred Ngaro.
Madam Speaker, one of my favourite All Black captains is Tana Umanga. He's a famous Cook Islander. Actually, he was Samoan, but beside the point, he made this comment when he was confronted by the media. They'd been talking about how rough the game was getting. They said we wanted to make the game a little bit more PC, a little bit more soft and cuddly. And here's his famous words: "This is not tiddlywinks. This is not tiddlywinks." So now we're here in Parliament, where we are debating the issues, and the opposition, the government of the day, who were the opposition of yesterday, who would hold us to account many different times, want us to play tiddlywinks. Well, I'm sorry, it's not tiddlywinks. Be prepared when you are the government of today to have and be held accountable. That's absolutely what there is. Mr. Chris Farfoy was on the other side, and he was giving it to us. He was holding us to account, and so he should. So for the government of today to expect us just to give you a free ride, I'm sorry. No free passes. Here we go. This is not tiddlywinks, Madam Speaker. This is the real deal. Let's hold each other to account. There will be no soft and cuddlies. There will be no marshmallows. This is where, if you've got the ideas, if you think you're just as good, in fact, here's the thing that concerns me. The Prime Minister today stood up and said, let's all be bipartisan, let's hold hands, let's sing Kumbaya. Somehow we'll make child poverty disappear. Somehow we'll make it all look good and rosy, but we won't. Why? Because the reality is you have to work hard. You are in that position today. You may not be in tomorrow, but you're in that position today, so you will be held to account, and that's what you will deserve, and that's what we'll demand of you as well. Madam Speaker, can I also talk about, since we've been talking about this bill, and the first thing I want to say, what's in a name? Part 3 of this bill, of the Child Poverty Reduction Bill, talks about, in Part 3, about removing the name of vulnerable children. And we know that the Honourable Tracy Martin had also been talking about this. She talked passionately about in her speech about the importance why the name had to be removed. And the reason why the name had to be removed was simply this: the stigma that it would give to children. The stigma that would, and on this side, when the government of today was the opposition of yesterday, they would say to us, how dare you name this bill Vulnerable Children Oranga Tamariki? Why? Because it's the stigma that it will give to children. Why should children be called vulnerable? Why should children be treated in this way? And there are many speeches and debates in this House. And now you're going to remove vulnerable children, but you're going to put child poverty. So what's in the name? You're going to say that remove the vulnerability, but you're going to keep the name child poverty. In other words, you're going to say this. You're going to say there are some children in our nation that are impoverished. And look, I don't resile from the fact there are children who are impoverished. But if you're going to take the name vulnerable children, but you're going to keep the name child poverty, well, I tell you this, isn't it interesting that you are doing this? It's hypocritical to be able to talk about it this way, because now you're going to put a stigma on children. But so be it. You're deciding this. And yet it was under this party...
Order. Just remind the member not to bring the Speaker into the debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do apologise for bringing you into the debate. The issue is this, though, Madam Speaker, is about the fact is the changing in Part 3 of the bill, the changing of the name of vulnerable children, removing that to now become the Children's Act as part of the omnibus process of this bill, but we're going to leave the name child poverty. And I tell you the reasons why. Because of the 230 that they've measured that are children that are impoverished, over 130 are Māori tamariki, Madam Speaker. They're Māori tamariki. And so what we're going to be saying this, we say those children are impoverished children. And I know that the Honourable Mātua Shane Jones and Honourable Chris Farfoy, we grew up in homes that probably today we would be measured as being impoverished. I mean, I can remember the late Parikura Horemia standing up in this House, giving speeches about the times he's in Ruatoria, when there were dirt floors, when the people of today would have judged it being impoverished and incapable and unable. But they never choose to do that. Why? Because they believed in themselves that they had opportunity and they had aspiration. My concern with this bill, Madam Speaker, is that it will send a message out there, it will create a stigma that these children are now going to be labelled. Our children are going to be labelled, because what it's going to say, who are the poor kids and who are the kids that are the rich kids or the good kids that are doing well. We will start to measure them and start to look at what they are doing. And Madam Speaker, that's what my concern. If we're going to take the name of vulnerable, leave the name of poverty, we're still keeping that name that will create a stigma, and I think that's going to be an interesting challenge as we go forward. Madam Speaker, let's talk about the targets in this bill and what it's proposing to put into place. And yet, many speakers have talked about this, about the better public services. When I have spoken to people, and they've said to me, what does BPS mean, better public services? And I would acknowledge the Right Honourable Bill English, because actually under his leadership, where he said this: before we go out and ask anything of our communities, as a government department, as a government institution, let's hold the mirror to ourselves. Let's hold us to account. That's what better public services is about. And then when better public services came into social investment, it was also saying, so here's the how. So the mirror then turned around and said, are we doing a good job? Are we more of the problem rather than the solution to the challenges and the issues? Yes, of poverty, yes, of health, yes, of education. That's what the BPS target was all about, Madam Speaker. Then it went on to social investment. Social investment was simply this. When you look at the forecasting, the predictions, and when we see this in the bill, when it talks about the growth potentially of those children that are in poverty, and social investment took an approach as to how we would address these very issues that are actually trying to be addressed in this bill. So it talked about this.
Order. Can I just remind the member that we are talking about this particular bill and not previous policy, and that I don't see anywhere in this bill where those two elements are part of the bill. So would you come back to the substance of the bill, please?
Madam Speaker, point of order. Can I just say that it's the linking of the how, talking about the targets that are actually inside this bill.
Yep.
And previous speakers have actually talked a lot about those.
And this has been raised as an issue with other speakers, and I think we need to move on from that point and talk about the content of the bill. Thank you.
And the content of the bill talks about targets, Madam Speaker. And in those targets, it's set out so-called ambitious targets of reducing child poverty by 100,000 over 10 years. Now, when we talk about the challenge that we have for this bill is talking about the how inside of those targets. And so that's the challenge in my debate over there, is that how will this government, it's already taken away the targets, it's going to remove the better public services, we don't know what it's going to be doing in regards to social investment, it's an institution, it's there in place. You know, I would encourage the government of today to look at that social investment that's actually been agreed upon from Treasury and other government departments as a way of looking forward. What the social investment strategy does, and in regards to targets like this, where those departments that will be impacted and be initiating the legislation of these targets, it says to them this: when we're forecasting what the growth may be, and in this case, the target is around the reduction of children in poverty and low-income households, then the how is where the social investment will do that. It will tell you how. First of all, it asks this question. We can do that by raising taxes. Secondly, we can do that by increasing debt. Oh, by the way, the current government are doing both. Or thirdly, we can find a new way. Social investment then finds a new way simply by doing this. And I hope that in this targets that's producing inside this bill, it will talk about the data that becomes important to ask the right question in regards to the factors is that where can we invest early to create the greater income in the long-term approach. So, Madam Speaker, those are the things that I think are really important, that I want to challenge this process. I'm looking forward because I'm actually in the Social Services and Community Select Committee, and we look forward to this bill coming in. We look forward to the submissions and the debates that will talk about this. And again, in my speech, it's the issue around the stigma that may be created. I hope that this doesn't create a stigma. And under the national government, we started removing the stigmatisation, and as Part 3 talks about the name of vulnerable children, and there were some debates about that, whether we should still keep that, but it went with Oranga Tamariki, then I would say use the same principle around child poverty. Because you could also find another name rather than stigmatising children to say that actually you're poor children, so we're going to help you. And that's the thing that concerns me a lot about this bill, Madam Speaker, is the fact that it's removing the power for communities, and now it's saying that actually the power is in the hands of the government to make the changes. We heard some other speeches on the other side talking about the fact of we can surrogate those roles. Could it be lunches in schools that be mandatory, universal throughout all the schools and so forth? Madam Speaker, that again concerns me. Because if we're thinking about the fact is that does not help communities that are wanting to find a way to better their outcomes, to better their situations, to be aspirational, if we keep surrogating. I'm concerned on this side that what we're going to have is that we're going to have a government machinery that's going to continue to grow, rather than devolving the opportunities for community to become self-sustaining, self-determining, taking their responsibilities for their whānau and their family. Madam Speaker, we look forward to this bill coming in. We will be supporting it. We will be holding it to account. And as I said before in the beginning of my speech, this is not tiddlywinks, so it is going to be a game that will be played hard. We will be holding you to account and challenging the very issues and the parts of this bill. There are parts that are good that we support. There are other parts that we would challenge in our SOP. Madam Speaker, I commend and commit this bill to the House.
Madam Speaker.